cloud. So that's going to record automatically to your cloud account that you have set up in here?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's on Zoom server.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and do the screen share here. If you see me kind of duck down like this, you'll know I'm looking at my other monitor. So let's see, screen share, desktop share. Okay, so can everybody more or less see my screen? Okay. Let me get some of this housekeeping squared away here. Where does the chat go when you go to your screen share? Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Okay, wonderful. Hey, thanks for everybody participating in this. Hopefully I won't embarrass myself too much. Okay, so I want to start by something that I sort of believe, especially with Adobe products, that's really, really true. And that is that you learn by doing with Adobe. So the best way to learn is to just create any kind of small project that you can, and then just start working on it. And what that'll do is that'll put you in what I call a problem-solving mindset. You know, so no matter what, no matter how good you are with Photoshop or how long you've used it, even the guys that that are programming Photoshop, that work for Adobe, they're still learning how to use it, right? So you wanna just start creating stuff, and that's really the best way to learn it, because when you hit a wall, you figure out a way to get through that wall, and then you've learned a little bit more. Again, I want to officially share that a guy who's inspired me to learn and continue learning, his name is Deep McClellan, and you can view all of his tutorials on lynda.com or by getting a paid membership to LinkedIn, and then you can access their learning. And he does, I think his courses are called Fundamentals of Photoshop, Advanced Photoshop, and something else Photoshop, right? And he also teaches Illustrator courses and all that kind of stuff. He's a very talented, he knows everything there is to know about Photoshop and Illustrator and all those programs by Adobe. So one of my good friends from another group on Facebook, I was explaining to her I was a little bit nervous about doing this webinar, because I want to make sure that I deliver good content for everybody. And anyway, she shared some words of encouragement with me, and she said, well, let me share a secret with you. And she said, even people who have worked with Photoshop since day one, and people who are building it today are still learning new tricks and things with it. It's a huge and long learning experience that never ends. So what we're working for tonight is we want to get you to a place where you know your way around Photoshop, and then through other tutorials of Photoshop and Illustrator, so you can always figure out what you need to figure out. So you can always push through and get your, and actually it becomes really easy to do the things that you want to do. And so hopefully we'll get you designing t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of fun stuff through Shawn's group, through his print-on-demand group. Okay, so something I wanted to share with you here really quickly is a little bit about my workflow. What I do is I create a folder that has my company name on it, and then inside that folder I have so this is an example right here. So I've got these are Adobe tutorials I'm going to be doing with you guys. So what I would do is I would do my company, and then inside of my company I would have a folder called Designs, and then that's kind of where I just start keeping all my assets. And then if you want to, in there you can actually create a new folder to twirl any of these folders over. And by the way, this is an application called Adobe Bridge, and there's some real cool benefits to using Adobe Bridge. One of which is if you're in Windows, something that can be a little bit frustrating. Now, Mac users, calm yourself, right? Don't talk about how much Windows sucks, because we know how you feel. Okay, but one of the challenging things with Windows is in Windows File Explorer, right? You can't see a preview of a PSD file, and a PSD file is a Photoshop formatted file, and the PSD file, it retains everything in its sort of original design format that you've set up. So it has all your layers separated and everything. When you have a PNG or a JPEG, or when you've exported your Photoshop design file out, then essentially what it does is it creates that image as a single thing that's basically flattened all into a single image or a single layer. And so it becomes pretty difficult to edit that, right, after you've exported that. So anyway, with a PSD file in Windows, you can't see, like I can't see what this image looks like that I was working on, or this design template, right? If I'm just opening it up in Explorer. But in Bridge, you can. So here's that. Well, this is the PNG here, but this is the PSD that we couldn't see what it looked like. Is everybody following so far? Hopefully this is helpful. All right. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons I like to use Bridge, is because it allows me to take a look at what the PSD file is. This right here, this is actually an asset. This is actually the preview of the item that we're looking at. The other cool thing in Bridge is you can zoom the previews of each of the items. So if you're like me, you're getting a little bit older, having a hard time seeing things, you can increase the preview size so you can actually see what you're looking at. Okay, just trying to get a few windows open here. All right. So now, if you don't want to use Bridge, something that you can do, which is really handy, is you can use a application called Seer, and what it does is it mimics the Mac or the Apple computer's spacebar preview. And so let me put a link to that in the chat over there. Okay, so anyway, this is something called CC Seer, and when you run it, if you hit your space bar, it'll generate a quick preview for you. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to launch Seer here, and it basically just launches itself up here in your app tray. Okay, so we can see it there. It's active now. So then if I come back over here and I grab my Windows Explorer, right? So even though we can't see it in this preview here, if I click on it and then I push my space bar, it brings up a preview of that, and that's what Seer does inside of Windows. On a Mac, this is a native feature, a native function that allows you to preview. And what's really neat about this is you can actually preview any kind of video clips or any sort of image file just through Seer by using that. You want to close it, you can either hit your spacebar again, or you can hit this little X button up there. Okay, so there we go. All right, so okay, let me go ahead and close this here. So inside of Photoshop, one of the things we want to do is we want to, again, some of this stuff I'm going to cover tonight is hopefully going to help you guys understand, if you're not seeing what you're expecting to be seeing, why you might not be seeing it, because that was a really frustrating thing for me when I was first getting started in Photoshop, okay? So let's go ahead and open up a file here just by going to File and Open, okay? And then this is, I mean, everybody who's used Windows is familiar with this box, but something that may happen to people is, remember, down here you have a filter, okay? And what you want it to be on is this all formats with the splat dot splat or the asterisk dot asterisk. So if you're coming in here and you're where is it? Like sometimes this will default to PDF, okay? And you can see if for some reason the filter has defaulted to something other than all file formats, you're not going to see what you're expecting to see in here, right? All your PSD files are gone, all your JPEG files are gone, and it can be frustrating, and you know, you can't figure out what's going on there, right? So just make sure that this filter, if that ever happens to you, like you haven't broken the internet, you haven't broken Photoshop, you haven't broken your computer, it's just that the filter item here needs to be set to all formats, okay? All right, so now when you first open up Photoshop, this is probably what you're gonna see, although you won't have any history here, you won't have any recent files, okay? What's nice about this is you can see what you've been working on recently, and yeah, so that's simple enough. So you could just click on one of these items, like for example this one, and it'll automatically open up wherever that file was saved to. Okay, and once you open a file, you may end up with this dialog box here, and basically it's wanting to know if you want to import some of your assets into your library. And we don't want to do that right now, so we're just gonna click Don't Show, and you can do that too, and then cancel that, and we're good to start working, okay? So as you can see here, this window, if you guys have Photoshop open, this window probably doesn't look exactly like your window here, okay? I've got a bunch of custom settings that I've set up here, and I'm gonna walk you through how to get this layout tonight. But this is also inspired by Deke's tutorial, his one-on-one tutorial. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna restore the layout that you probably have, which is Photoshop Essentials. And so up here, you can see this little icon up in the upper right corner. This is your workspace icon. And if you click the down arrow, it'll give you all kinds of different workspaces that come default. So Essentials, 3D, graphic and web, motion painting, and photography are all the default workspaces that Adobe has set up. So, you know, if you're doing web graphics, they kind of feel like this is the layout you'll probably want to work with, okay? If you're working with photography, you know, and what it does is it just kind of sets up all of the different panels that they feel that you'll be using more frequently when you're working on a particular type of project. Okay, so we go back to Essentials here. Do you guys have Photoshop open right now? Like, are you looking at your Photoshop while you're on the webinar with me? Go ahead and put something in chat if you are, or are you just kind of watching and following along? Okay, so if your Photoshop looks like this, or it looks different than mine, we're going to walk through on how to kind of make things look similar. And I really like the layout that Deke talks about in his tutorials, and it's why I've kind of adopted it. It gives me everything that I need on a lot of the projects that I work on, especially when I'm doing print-on-demand stuff and a lot of the text-based designs. I really haven't found a different layout that was really any more efficient than that, and so that's why I've adopted it, and that's why I use it. So anyway, we basically got we've got opening a file, and then and now closing files. What you can do here is let me open up a few other files here. Let's see here. Open up this reference guide. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Let's see here. Okay, we'll just open that, which is just a little screen capture that I did earlier today. And we'll open up, this is the Amazon merch t-shirt template. Okay, and so we've got 3 files open up here, right? But we haven't made any changes to any of them. And so what you can do is you can close an individual tab if you want. So that's just clicking the X in the individual tab, and that tab goes away. All right, and there's no prompt because there's no changes to that file. Okay, so let's get back over here. We'll open this one up. One of the things that I wanted to do with you guys today, and also if you notice, I can drag these tabs around. You have to be careful though when you're dragging tabs, because if you can reorder the tabs by dragging them horizontally, But if you drag down, you'll create what's called a floating window. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to be conscious of what you can only work on one Photoshop file at any given time, okay? So it's not like in Illustrator where you can have multiple artboards and you can be working on different things at the same time. With Photoshop, you're only working on one item at a time, and it's whichever item is active. Okay, so if this ever happens to you, you can just drag it back up here, and you see the blue box that's around the workspace. Once that blue box appears, that means that when you let go of the floating window, it's going to drop into that workspace, okay? So let me rearrange this. So even though I kind of screwed it up and I've got a floating window now, if I put it back up here and I can see that that blue spot, it'll just go back into place, okay? Oh man, thank you so much, Mary Jo. Somebody said it was helpful. I'm so happy. That's what I'm trying to do here. Is I realize for a lot of people this is going to be basic stuff, but hopefully for some people it's going to be helpful, and you're going to figure out how to get yourself out of a mess, which sometimes can happen in Photoshop. Like for example, let me show you something. Everything can disappear, and you might go, "What in the heck? What happened? Like, where did everything go, and how do I get it back?" Right? I'm going to show you how to fix that tonight. So okay. Cloud account. Can a cloud account be shared with a VA? I think so, but I think you'll end up sharing your username and your password. And so, but there are options.
Sorry to cut in, but your Adobe account your cloud can be shared with 2 people.
Okay. And then there's also options here. There's also options here for business accounts, and then of course students and teachers and schools and universities. But if you need more users, then I think you can do something like this here. So okay, bear with me here. Let me get this screen closed. All right. So okay. So anyway, so we can open files now. We can close them. So now let's say we make a change to this file here, okay? And one of the things that I want to do, this is the header file for my my Facebook group, okay? And it doesn't look that great on mobile. Shawn was nice enough to point that out to me earlier today. And so what I want to do is I want to reverse this graphic here so that this highlighted element here is over on this side, and then I want to move all this text kind of over to the left, so then it'll look better when somebody's looking at the header on a mobile device. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now, this is more advanced than what we're we're going to sort of do tonight, but I wanted to I need to make the change anyway, and so I'm going to show you what happens after we make the change and try to close the file. I always get these confused, flipping horizontally and flipping vertically, but I got it right that time. Exciting, right? Okay, so now up here on this tab, this is the image that we're working on, right? You see that little asterisk right there? Okay, notice these other images that we have open. We haven't made any changes to them, okay? And there's no asterisk up in the upper right corner. The asterisk means that there's an unsaved change to this item, okay? And so if we were to just click on this X, we'd get a notification, hey, wait a minute. You've made changes. Do you want to save those changes before you close, okay? And if you say yes, it'll save the change to the original file, and then it'll close the tab. If we say no, it'll close the tab without saving the change. It's important to understand, okay? Because sometimes you can get, you can get editing an image and you lose track. And I've done this at 3:30 in the morning, and I got the image perfect, and I was just zooming through, and this came up, and I hit no, and I lost everything. So it can happen. Remember, like when you're closing your projects, don't make a mistake like I did. Okay, and now if you're not sure, if you kind of don't want to cancel, or if you want to save it, so some people in their workflow they might save this as a second image, so they retain the first image in all of its original glory, and then they save this as a second file name, right? So Oh man, I forgot. I want to save this as a new file name. So I hit cancel there. It just goes back to here. Okay. And then we go file. We can go save as, and then we can, in here, we can go, what I usually do is I usually use numbers if I'm going to have revisions, and they're always three digits, right? So I'll go 0, 0, 1, and if I need another digit, I might use a B, okay? Something like that. Is there everybody kind of following along for I hope that might be helpful to some people. Okay, and the reason I like to do that is because then when you go in and you're viewing your files by file name, then your revisions will actually be in order, okay? And that's why I like to use the 3-number thing at the front of the file name instead of using it on the end of the file name. Okay, so let's say this is the second revision, so I do a 002, the Facebook group header. It comes up with this dialog here. I always like to maximize compatibility, and there's other settings that we'll go into in other tutorials a lot further down the road in a situation where you might not want to do this, but I always click OK, and then it's saved off, and you'll notice that the tab up here changed to the new file name, the 002 Facebook group header. Okay, fair enough? Hope that was helpful. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so now you can close. Another thing that you can do too is you can close all your tabs at once. So if you click this, just close all your tabs are closed, and now you're back here to your to your recent file or your dashboard, your Photoshop dashboard. Okay, so let's see. All right, cool. All right, so now let's talk about navigating around, and I'm gonna show you a couple of things really quick here. We'll revisit this in future tutorials, but Facebook is what's called well, I don't know what it's friggin' called, okay, but Facebook has layers, okay? So you always want to imagine, yes, this thing looks like a piece of paper, right? But you always want to imagine that it's a piece of paper with layers upon layers upon layers, okay? And we do it that way because, you know, if you're just drawing on a you know, if you're making changes to a photograph, a real photograph, or if you're making changes to a real piece of paper, you can manipulate the artwork that you're doing manually by hand. But if you think about it, when you're shading with a pencil, okay, and you then draw something else on top of that shaded part, right? That's one layer of art on top of another, okay? And that's how that's how Photoshop works, okay? It's also to a little bit lesser of an extent how Illustrator works too. But anyway, so there's multiple ways to create layers, and I'm going to show you a few different ways, and then you can just figure out what works best for you, okay? So one way, if you're going to create a blank layer, over here in the layers panel, okay, if you guys can see my mouse, I'm kind of circling over layers. This is called the layers panel, okay, and it is probably the most important panel that you're going to use in Photoshop, okay? Kind of everything revolves around the layers panel. Okay, the easiest way to create a new layer is to come down here on this icon. Shawn, can you see this icon that I'm hovering over at the bottom?
I don't see your mouse. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, I see nothing in that box.
Okay, but down here under the create new layer, can everybody see that? Did you guys hopefully say so? Okay, good, wonderful. Thanks, guys. Okay, so you see how when you hover over it, it says create new layer. If you just click on it, okay, it's going to create a layer above the layer that you had selected. Okay, so we were on this layer right here. And I understand you can't see this very well, but there's a reason for that. Okay, I'm going to show you what we're doing here in a minute. But when I click on this, it's going to create a layer above the layer that we were selected on. Okay, so if I click on this top layer here, okay, and I click the create layer, a new layer, which should be called layer 3, is going to appear right here, and it's going to move these layers down. See? It's almost like magic, almost like I know what I'm doing, right? It's amazing. Okay, so let me go ahead and, okay, so then a way to delete a layer, there's many ways to delete a layer, but one of the ways that I use probably the most is you can grab the layer. You see how there's a little pointy finger there. When I click my mouse and move, it's grabbed it. It's got the fist because it's grabbed it. Okay, and I'm going to drag it down to this trash can right here. Okay, another way to delete a layer is by making sure you clicked on the right layer. Don't make a mistake, right? And click on a layer you want to keep, but you can click on the layer you want to delete, and then you just click on the trash can, and then it says you want to delete the layer that you just clicked on. You say yes, and then of course you can click the don't show again. I really wouldn't recommend that, okay, because you can delete the wrong thing sometimes. Okay, all right, so the first way to create and delete a layer, right? Now another way to create layers, and some of these shortcuts are important because when you find yourself doing a lot of work in Photoshop, these things, it's really important to remember keyboard shortcuts and whatnot. So if you hold down the control button and you click the new layer, it's going to pop the layer below the layer that you were selected on. Cindy, that's a great question. I'll try to address that before the end of the training here. If you can put that in the Q&A though, so we don't miss it, that would be helpful. Yes, there is. There's a, and then Mary asked if there's an undo. Yes, there is. There's an undo, and I'll show you that here in a second. Okay. So if you're going to create, and bear with me, guys, because there's so much to cover. I just want to make sure that we cover each section so it's sort of organized in your minds at least. So bear with me here. Okay, so if we want to create a layer underneath the layer that we're currently working on, okay, so this is the layer up here that we're working on, and we want to create a layer directly under it. We're going to hold the control key, and we're going to click the create new layer, and you see how layer 2 got popped right below layer 0, right? That's what we wanted to have happen. And it's important to know how to manipulate where these layers are created, especially if you're doing a ton of work in Photoshop, so you don't always have to come over here. Now you can reorder layers really easily by grabbing it, right? And then moving up, and then you see how that gray, this gray line appears up here? If I let go, then layer 2 is going to go up above layer 0, okay? If I want layer 2 to go down below layer 1, I just grab it and drag it below there. But as you can see, that takes a lot more time to do than just either clicking on the create layer button or hitting control and clicking on the button, okay? So now there's one other, oh, and by the way, you can select more than one layer at once. Let's talk about that real quick, okay? So I've got layer 2 here. If I want to select all these layers all at once, I can hold the shift button down and click the layer, you know, whatever layer I want, and then all the layers between the one that was selected first and the one that I shift clicked on, all the layers in between will be selected. Just like if you can imagine when you're working in Excel or when you're working in Word, when you shift click on words and different things when you're making selections, the same applies here. Okay, if I just wanted to select layer 0 and layer 2, right, what I would do is I would hold down the control key. So at first, I would not hold the control key. I would just click on layer 2 first, okay? And then if I want to get layer 0, I would click, I would hold control and then click on layer 0. And now you can see that layer 0 and layer 2 are selected without layer 1 being selected, okay? Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so now I want to get layer 1 and layer 2 because I'm going to delete those guys, drag them down here to the trash can, okay? And notice too, when you drag a layer to the trash can, there's no confirmation you want to delete that layer, right? There's you know, it figures if you've dragged that, Photoshop figures if you've dragged that into the trash can, those are the ones you want to delete, okay? The only way you're going to get a, are you sure you want to delete message is if you just click on your layer and then you click separately on the trash can. All right, so really quickly, somebody asked if there was a way to undo, and before I forget, this is what's called the history panel. And so you can see these are all the actions that we've taken, right, by creating layers and deleting layers and all that kind of stuff. And you can go back one step, right, or we can go all the way back to the beginning. okay? And what's kind of neat is we can redo any of these things, okay? As long as we haven't made another change, all right? And then the other thing that you can do too is if you want to go back to your original saved document, so the document as it was before you started making any changes at all, you can come up here and go to File, and you can click on Revert, okay? And then you'll notice we come up here to the History panel. It still has the history, but everything is exactly, it's been put back to exactly what it was before we started making any changes, okay? And you'll notice that there's no asterisk up here either at this point, okay? Okay, so bear with me now. There's one more way to create a new layer, okay? And that is to hold the Alt key down while you click this, while you click to create the new layer, okay? This brings up the new layer dialog box, okay? And what it does is it allows you to name the layer, which can be extremely helpful, especially if you're creating complex documents and complex images, or if you're testing the way something looks, right? And you want to have one layer that has like your phrase in one font and another layer that says this exact same phrase in a different font, okay? So it can be really helpful to have, to name your layers and also to designate the color of the layer, okay? So, so bear with me here, I'll show you what this all means. So right now, it's really impossible to see the image that's on this layer because it's in, I think it's colored gray or off-white, okay? And so we can't really see it, right? So I'm gonna create a background layer here, and I'm gonna set this to be blue in color, okay? And we're just gonna leave it in a normal mode. This is like if you want to set it up as a blend mode, and then we're gonna leave it at 100% opacity, okay? So we click OK, and you'll see that the background layer is created with the title that we named it, okay? Now it's created above the layer that we were on, but that's okay, I showed you earlier. You can just drag that down, okay? So now what we want to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to give the background, or I'm going to actually give this layer a color, okay? So I'm going to click on my little paint bucket here, all right? You can see, so the other thing too is on these menus, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit now, but if you're kind of following along, you're going to notice that as I touch on certain elements and we start doing more advanced things, that I'm going to take the opportunity to help, or hopefully get you guys familiar with where you can look for things, okay? So anytime you see this little, you see this tiny little triangle at the bottom of this button, okay? That means that there's more in there to see, okay? So if you click and hold, then you get the other items that are inside of that menu item, okay? So it just so happens that this one is set on the paint bucket tool, which is what I want, okay? And because I'm going to fill the whole layer, I don't need to come and I don't need to set a selection, okay? But anyway, so we're going to fill it black, okay? And now this layer, and what's important to note, right, is because I was selected on this layer, this layer was going to get the paint bucket treatment, okay? This layer is still exactly the same as it always was, right? So basically, the only layer that I impacted was this layer here because I had it selected, okay? So now let's go back, all right? And this happens a lot, okay? So you're actually selected on the wrong layer and you go to do the same thing, right? And that doesn't look right at all, does it? You guys still following? I think I've lost a few people on the call, but hopefully the people that are remaining are still finding this helpful. So this happened because, why? quick quiz, right? Because we were on the wrong layer and we filled the background layer and there weren't lines in some of these places, and so the fill, or you know, like this, for example, this banner up here, it has a solid line all the way around it, right? So none of the fill penetrated that line, okay? So not what we wanted. And if you see something like this, now, hopefully for the rest of your life as you're using Photoshop, hopefully now, you see something like this happen, you don't have to figure out, like you don't have to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out what happened, right? You can go, oh, you know what? I was on that tutorial with Mark and he said that probably I was selected on the wrong layer, right? Because you're a problem solver now, because you're working on a project. And you just come over here to your history, you back it up, okay? And then you come over here and you select the right layer and you put your background on that. Yay, hurrah, everybody like that, I hope, okay? So now hopefully you're starting to like get the difference between layers, and you got to make sure that you're selected on the right one and that they're in the right order. So now what happens if you remember when we created that new layer, right? It was on the top here, and you got a little anxious, and you wanted to get that background in there so you could see this beautiful artwork that you've done, right? Oh my God, what happened? Okay, what happened? Where did the artwork go? Anybody know? Come on, in the chat. Yes, it's the right layer. I put the black on the right layer. Okay, somebody gets stars. The first person who guesses it. Why can't we see the artwork? Yep, that's right, because we're working with layers. Okay, Carlos gets the gold stars right now, all right? Because this layer over here is on top of the artwork layer, and we just put a solid black fill on this layer. Okay, so that solid black fill is covering all of our artwork here, right? What happens, do you think, if I take the opacity of that black layer down? Will we start to see our artwork? Yup, right? Because we made this a little bit less dark, and now we can start to see our artwork again. All right, so let's just drag this down, and there we go. That's what we were hoping for, right? All right. I hope this is being helpful. Okay, so now that we did a little bit on layers, we're going to talk about how to navigate inside of, you know, how in the heck do I move around in Photoshop, right? Okay, so let's talk about zoom. A lot of people take zooming for granted, right? And there's actually a lot to go over here. So let's get going. Okay, so zooming. You see over here, there's a zoom tool. The shortcut keys. If you guys can see the Z, I'm on the left side of in the left toolbar now. In parentheses, there's a Z. Okay, anytime you see the parentheses, that indicates a keyboard shortcut. So if I come back up here to my selector tool and I hover over it, come on, don't turn me into a liar. There we go. You'll see the shortcut key is M, right? So you're going to be, you know, doing a ton of work in Photoshop, going back and forth between your marquee tool or your selector tool and zoom, right? But you actually using the zoom tool. So I just clicked the Z button, and you can see the zoom tool is active, right? If I click the M button, watch up here, this will change color. Watch. Okay, see? Now back down to the zoom button. Okay, so now that indicates the tool that I'm on. This is a real pain in the rear. I'm just telling you, when you're doing a ton of work, to actually use the zoom tool, but I'm going to show you how it works, okay? So you've got the zoom tool selected. If you can see over here to the left, you can see the tool itself. It's got a little plus in the middle of it. Obviously, if we click on that, we're going to zoom in, right? And the kind of the cool thing is that wherever that is, wherever your magnifying glass is, you're going to zoom in to that part of the image, okay? If you want to zoom out, you hold your Alt key and you click, and you'll zoom out centered on wherever the zoom tool is. To get the selector tool, all you're doing is pressing M, Mary. All you're doing is pressing M, and then that switches you over to the selector tool. See, okay, and then you press Z, and that gives you the zoom tool. Okay, and then one of the things that you're going to do a lot in Photoshop is you're going to deselect, right? So that's right up here under Select. The shortcut is Control D. Okay. So we want to do Control D, and that takes the selection away. Because like, check this out. This is also something that can go wrong, right? You do a selection here, and let's say we're doing red here, and we grab our handy dandy little paint bucket, but we wanted to actually do the whole background. We wanted to change it all to red, but we had a selection here that we forgot about, right? Or what's probably more likely is you end up having a selection that, again, it's not going to be like a square selection. Just bear with me. We'll cover a lot of these other things when we get into more advanced tutorials. But you know, let's say you're working on a tight selection here, and you kind of moved on and you forgot about that, and then you come back over here and you wanted to change the whole background to red. So you click on that, right? Exactly. And what happens? See, I'm clicking. When the paint bucket goes away, that means I'm clicking. Why is there no red appearing? Right? Because I'm clicking here. Well, when you have a selection in Photoshop, you're only impacting where that selection is. Okay? And you can kind of see over here, no action happened after I set up the rectangle marquee, right here. Okay? Now, if I click inside the marquee, what's going to happen, everybody? Come on. It's going to be red fill, right? Yay. And we can see that the paint bucket action happened. Okay? So this is, again, something that can be frustrating, and you can like wonder why isn't the background changing color, right? Why isn't this image doing what I want it to do? Well, it's probably because you got a selection somewhere. Okay? So then Control D to unselect real quick. We do that. Hey, yay! We get the entire layer changing color because we didn't have an active selection on the board. Okay. You can also undo by doing a Control Z, but undo in Photoshop is a little bit different, right? We have steps backward and we have steps forward. Okay. And Control Z, if you were to hit Control Z again, it would just redo the action that you just did. Okay, so if I hit just Control Z again, what I'm going to do, all it's going to do is step backward once. It's going to just undo the last action. Okay, that's why this history panel is so important to know where it is and what it looks like, because that way you can actually get back to the exact step that you're looking for. All right, let me go ahead and get the layer order there. All right, so again, we're talking about zooming now. I got a little bit off track there. There's so much to cover, guys. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to zoom on this guy right here, okay? Without using the, well, okay, let's keep talking about this guy here. Okay, something also that you can do here is if you click and you scroll to the right, you end up zooming in. If you click and you scroll to the left, you zoom out. Okay, so all I'm doing here, I have the zoom tool selected, right? And if I go to the right, I'm zooming in. If I go to the left, I'm zooming out. Fair enough? Yay? Okay. Exciting. Okay, now down here is where the zoom percentage is, right? So if you know the exact zoom that you want to do, let's say we want to do 75%, you can click in this zoom box here, and you can and it doesn't matter if you have the zoom tool selected or not. If you just click in this lower left zoom percentage here and you type 75, right, and you press enter, it's going to zoom your image to 75%, okay? Now let's see if I can, okay, now here's something that I learned from Deke through his tutorials that I doubt that most people know. Okay, so I'm really trying to add some value to you guys here, although whatever, I don't know if it's really that valuable, but it's cool, and most people don't know about this, okay? If you come down here and you hover over the zoom percentage and you push your control button on your keyboard, okay, you see how the icon, the hand changed a little bit? It's got two arrows on the left and the right, okay? Now, if you push your mouse button down and you scroll to the right and the left, you're going to be able to zoom that way as well, okay? And what's cool about zooming like this is notice that the zoom percentage is going up in whole numbers, okay? So you don't see like 112.68, okay? When we were doing it inside of the image here, remember I was showing you, if you hold control, so you're inside the workspace, push your control button, okay, push your mouse, oops, sorry. You push down on the mouse, sorry. Okay, I'm having a little brain hemorrhage here. Bear with me just a second. Okay, right. Okay, so you're not holding control, sorry. So you're in the screen, you're in the workspace here, and you hold your mouse button down, and then you scroll to the right and the left, okay? you'll notice down here that there's like it's a weird number. It's 19, in this case, 19.21, okay? And then if I scroll down a little bit more that way, it's 13.78, okay? But if I come down here and I do it this way, and I go a little bit to the right, it's gonna go 14.78. It's gonna go 15.78. So it's gonna go up 1% at a time for every notch that you move your mouse, and vice versa, okay? So again, I'm not saying this is the best way to zoom. It's just another way that may make more sense to you, okay? There's a lot of ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. I think I might have been saying Facebook a little bit, but I hope not. They both start with the F sound. So, sorry. Okay, I'm always talking about Photoshop. All right, so anyway, and then if you want to come back to like a whole number, what you can do is you can come here and you can put in 50%, okay? And then when you do that zoom in and zoom out using the cursor with the control key over here, it'll go up in 1% at a time or down 1% at a time. All right, here's the way that I zoom. Most of us, especially on PCs, most of us have wheel mice, and I like my wheel on my mouse very much, okay? So here's how you zoom in and out, is you hold the Alt key, okay, and you spin your mouse up to zoom in, and you spin your mouse down to zoom out, and I love that. That's super awesome when you're working on a lot of stuff and you're getting in real close and you're using your pen tool to cut, you know, to create outlines and a lot of that stuff we don't even know anything about yet, but there you go. It's really handy to have a wheel mouse when you're working in Photoshop and you start to figure out how you can manipulate around an image really fast. All right, so we've covered the mouse wheel. Okay. Arrow, drag and control mouse. Okay, so now the final zoom things are the like the main keyboard shortcuts. Okay, if you want to look at your image, if you want to fit your image to your workspace, okay, you can hit Control-0. All right, and you can see that the image doesn't have any workspace up above or below, but you have a little gray area here, okay? And so that'll fit your image so you can kind of see the whole image inside of your workspace, but it fits it exactly, okay? If you want to, bear with me here. I did something I didn't mean to. Okay, if you want to look at the image at 100%, you hit Control-1, okay? And that's 100%, that's zoomed in at 100%. And you can see that down here reflected in the number here. So again, the Control-0 is always going to be a little, it's going to be a weird number, okay? Because it's going to be impacted by the size of your Photoshop workspace. So, you know, if your desktop is only 12 by 7, you know, then your space is going to be a little bit smaller than mine, and so, but it'll shrink it down to fit inside of this gray workspace. Okay. The other way you can do too is you can, if you want to, if the other shortcuts for zooming are Control+ and Control-. So you know, if you hit Control+, you zoom in one step at a time. Control-, you're backing off one step at a time. It's also important to note that that when you're in some kind of weird, like if you were at 33.78, that the pixels would not be as sharp. Basically, at that point, Photoshop is kind of interpreting what the image would look like, but it's kind of fuzzing out some of the pixels, because it's important to understand that Photoshop is not math-based like Illustrator, okay? Photoshop is a pixel-based, it's only manipulating pixels, right? And so, so if you're not doing something that Photoshop has like preset to exactly understand, then the image might not be as sharp, or it might not be as accurate, okay? Although, to be honest, it's not gonna impact anything you're gonna really do in Photoshop, at least based on these tutorials, okay? the zoom stops that you will be looking at the image the way that it's, you know, so that's not fuzzy or whatnot, is when you do Control plus and Control minus. So even though you can see the zoom level right now is 33.33, this is what the image looks like at a third zoom, okay? If we hit Control plus, it goes to 50%. Control plus again, we go to 66.67. This is exactly what the image looks like at 66.67. There's no fuzzy pixelation or anything going on like that, okay? And again, we go to Control 1 is 100%. Control 0 fits it back in the workspace. All right. Now, to continue on with the mouse wheel, because the mouse wheel is extremely powerful when we're using it in Photoshop. What we'll notice here, because we've fit this image on the desktop, so it's not going to allow us to scroll around anywhere. Like even if I were to use this hand, which I'll kind of, well, I guess I can go over this here really briefly. So to get this hand, this hand will grab and move the item around. So let me zoom into 100%. So as long as there's a place to move the image, right? If I hit the space bar now, I get my hand dragger tool on my bobber. It's actually right here. Okay, it's called the hand tool, believe it or not. All right, and so so even though I'm on the zoom tool right now, I can hit the space bar and it gives me the hand tool, and I can move the image around. I can drag it around like this. This is extremely handy, right? So rather than having to come over here and click on the hand tool and move your image, and then come over here and grab your marquee tool and marquee this, right? And then come up here and go edit and copy and then edit and, okay, paste, paste outside, right? And that creates a layer over here. And then we can move that layer around independent of, sorry, I gotta select the right layer. See what happens? Oh my gosh. Mark, what are you doing? It's almost like you don't know what you're doing, man. Okay, so anyway, the point is, right, rather than doing all this other stuff here, sorry, I was using the wrong tool. Okay, so rather than having to come over here and individually do every single thing, you want to get to a place where you can quickly do the stuff that you want to do, okay? And so being able to have one tool that you're using and then grab and move and then zoom in, right, quickly, and then grab and move that so it's centered, and then you can start to outline that, and you can move, you know, you can go over here. And then this is something fun you can do with your hand tool. If your computer is a halfway decent computer and your video card is OpenGL capable, you can do fun stuff like this. You can grab your image with your hand tool and you can huck it across the screen. And then you can grab it. You can go like this. So let's say I wanted to get to the loop at the top of this anchor really fast. I would grab the image, fling it down, and then I would grab the circle right here. That's kind of neat, right? Okay, another way, so sometimes you're going to be really zoomed in on an image. And by the way, here's what pixels look like, right? So once you get zoomed in enough, you get to see the individual pixels in the image, okay? Well, let's say you're in here and you're working to do an outline of this item, right? And you know, you want to move the image around so it's easy to work on. Well, probably not something this size, but maybe more like this right here, right? So you're going to try to grab an outline of this guy here, and you're going to want to move around that easily without having to come over here, grab that tool, move it, and then come back over here to your, where are we? Sorry, guys. Oh my goodness, Mark. Okay, so let's say you're trying to slice something, or you're wanting to use your pen tool, which for some reason I'm having a hard time finding right now. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so, you know, you want to have that main tool that you're using, right? And then you want to be able to move around the image, okay? Something that I've done a lot in the past is kind of fine-tune, you know, individual pixels, right? which is horribly mind-numbing and rough, but you know, here you go, right? So you're zoomed in and you're manipulating pixels like this, right? And you get to the end and you want to move up here to work here. You just grab it and you move it, right? All right, so enough of that. Are you guys following? Was that helpful? Okay. All right. Mary and Cindy, I love you guys. All right, so now the other thing that you can do on an image that you're zoomed in on, okay, is you can use your mouse wheel to move left and right. Okay, so you know how we're zooming in and out by holding the Alt key, by using our mouse wheel. If you use the Control key, and so right now I have the Control key pressed, and I'm moving the mouse wheel up, it moves the image to the left. Pulling the mouse wheel down, it moves the image to the right. Okay, so I'm sure you guys can kind of see how powerful that would be, right? Got the hand tool at the space bar. Want to move left here, right? Hand tool, move up. Okay, want to move to the right. Hand tool there. Okay, and so these are kind of the basic things that you need to understand how to use really quickly when you're moving around an image, because it's going to make your workflow a lot faster. Okay, somebody said that they're not getting the hand tool using the space bar. Jonathan, what kind of computer are you using? Windows 10. And are you on a desktop, or are you on a tablet? Okay. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'll look into it for you, and I'll see if I can find an answer. Are you Photoshop, or are you in the full version of Photoshop? Oh, gotcha. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, let me show you this one last thing. The reason it's not moving is because you're not zoomed in, right? Okay, so if we come back, if we come back over here, and we're out here, right? And I hit the space bar. It's not going to move the image because we're seeing the whole image. There's nowhere to scroll, right? However, if you want to, if you do want to be able to move the image, just because you like to be able to do that, it helps you mentally to be able to do that, which is perfectly fine. You want to come up here to Edit, and then go to Preferences, okay? Then Tools, okay? And there's this setting here called Overscroll. And if you tick that box, click OK. Now, even though there's nowhere to scroll, and without that setting, you wouldn't be able to scroll, now you can. So now if I push the space bar, sorry guys, come on. Now I can, and you got to be on the right layer. Now you can move the image anywhere you want. Fair enough. So the other thing you might have been is you might have been like on a specific layer, okay? And maybe that layer is locked or something like that, right? But anyway, so right now, are you able to move? Are you able to move it after changing that overscroll setting? Yeah, basically, Jonathan, the reason none of that was working was probably because your image was in the full workspace. And what you can do is, if you go and join my Facebook group, let me put that link in there again. You can ask the question in there, and then somebody will answer and be able to help you out specifically. Okay, so I just want to give an invite to everybody that if you'd like to, obviously it's not necessary, but if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to join the group. And then once I review your request to join, we'll accept you and get you in there, and then we can figure that out. All right, so that's over an hour, right, Shawn?
Yeah, we're over an hour, but I think it was Jonathan, the issue with the space bar. Apparently there's a lot of issues with extensions in your browsers, so I would try closing the browsers before you open Photoshop and then go back into Photoshop and see if you have that problem. And if it goes away, then it could be an issue with one of your extensions that are installed. The web browsers, Firefox and Chrome.
Yeah, it could also be, there's also something to do with your video card, right? So if your video card is not OpenGL capable, then that might be causing a problem as well. So it might be good just for an experiment to shut, to turn everything off, right? Restart your computer, and then when you come back up, the only thing that you open is Photoshop, and then give that a try. Just make sure that you're zoomed in enough, so that you're zoomed in. And what will work no matter what is if you do the Control+, okay, or if you come up here to View and you zoom in to say 200%, and then try to move it around there, right? Don't try to, because your overscroll may not be turned on. And so make sure that you're zoomed in there and figure that, and figure out if you can do that or not. And it may just be like a video card thing too, so. Okay.
And also, if anybody's not using, well, if you're not using Photoshop, but also if you're not using the Creative Cloud, I'll put the link in there. If anyone wants to check it out, it's a 30-day trial. That's no affiliate link or anything.
Yeah.
Posted like that, but so you can get everything. If you guys want to learn about Illustrator, we're going to be doing another one of these next week. Probably at the same time, and then we're going to do a part 2 of this series on Photoshop, probably in 2 more weeks, same time. And if you're not in my group, I don't have the link right now, but I'll be emailing everybody out all these links that we talked about, plus a link to my Facebook group, which is, we specifically talk about print on demand, and not just using merch on Amazon, merch by Amazon, and how you can, you should be uploading your stuff to, there's dozens of different print on demand sites, so you'd be uploading that same image you're using on merch to all those other sites, and some of them have dozens of different products. One of them has over 8,000 different products you can upload one image to and have it printed on 8,000 different kinds of products. So, there's a whole world of print on demand out there behind, beyond just, Amazon. So, that's what we show you, with these tutorials, and we do tons of webinars, one almost every single day of the week, on different tools that you can be using. Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't get to everything tonight. There's a lot more to cover, and a lot more even to get us to like the basic desktop setup. But I'm going to be adding some smaller tutorials inside the group as well, and hopefully if you guys come and join, then you can be able to get your questions answered. And I really appreciate you inviting me to do this tonight, Shawn. I really do, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. And before we go, I just want to get these back in the chat. People are trying to sign up, and for some reason it posted both the links at the same time. Okay, so there's the one again to the Facebook group, and another one for the Creative Cloud. I'm not sure which one you were trying to use. The guy on Linda, Mark, what was his name?
Deke McClellan, and his tutorial his tutorials are they're like one-on-one with Deke. He's on YouTube, and he does a fundamentals, he does an intermediate, and he does it in advanced. And I mean, it's literally everything you could ever hope, want to learn about, about Photoshop and Illustrator and anything else he covers. But yeah, he's awesome. And so are we.
Right, so are we. So we'll get the links together for Deke, and we'll also email those out to everybody for Lynda, and I think it's spelled Lynda, right? Is that correct? The
Yeah,
training?
yeah, Lynda. Yep.
.com. So yeah, it's a training site. So yeah,
But if you guys pay, you know, if you get, even if you get like the lowest level on LinkedIn, you get access to all that for free or as part of your membership on LinkedIn. So you might consider doing it that way versus going straight to Lynda, because I think you get a little bit more value.
right. And coming up, last thing on Thursday, we're going to be doing a webinar showing you all about Redbubble. So if you're only uploading the merch, or maybe you're not even uploading anything at all yet, you're not approved for merch by Amazon, Redbubble is a great one. You can upload one image and the product goes on close to 50 different products that they sell. Hoodies and, you know, sweatshirts and t-shirts and dresses and you know, you name it. So it's going to be a great one. We'll see you guys soon. Good night.
Good night.